Good evening, my fellow classmates. So, in chapter 2, the two quotes that I have selected, the first is, if you create an environment where people truly participate, you don't need control. They know what needs to be done and they do it. I think what the author is trying to say is that oftentimes we get caught up in the details, and if you give people the tools they need to be successful and step back, more often than not, they'll rise to the occasion. What it means to me is that when I find myself in a leadership position, being able to give people those tools is an imperative part of their growth. For example, when I served as a national officer, we spent weekend training the local officers on things that they could do to increase participation in some of our programs, like the Torch program. And I find that it's best to just give people the information and the tools that they need, and then they will get inventive and they'll create new things. The second quote that I selected from chapter 2 is, don't ever think you've arrived, and remember that what you don't know is so much more than what you do. And I think that what the author is saying is that don't stop learning, don't stop growing. And what this means to me is that you should always be focused on learning more about something, because there's always something to be learned from any situation. Even if you are an expert, you can grow in subtle ways if you take the time to look at it and find some areas that you can improve in. Moving on to chapter 14, the quote I selected for chapter 14 was, put it before them briefly so they will read it, clearly so they will appreciate it, picturesquely so they will remember it, and above all, accurately so they will be guided by its light. That quote was by the guy who created the Pulitzer Prize, and I think that it's a really great description of how to be a good writer. You need to be brief, you need to be clear, you need to be able to explain the picture that you're trying to put across in your message, and above all, you need to be accurate, because there's nothing worse than putting something out there and having there be an inaccuracy. So I think that's kind of what the author's saying. What it means to me is it's just kind of a reminder of the things that I can do in my own writing to make it better or to improve upon it. The second quote that I chose for chapter 14 is, the effects of growing up in an increasingly digital world can be seen in the new generation of young people, and they are not all good. I think what the author means is that although technology has increased our ability to do a number of things, there have been some cons to having all the technology as well, such as people not being able to read for long lengths of time or getting easily distracted, using telegraphic language. And so what it means to me is to remember that an email isn't always the best way to communicate. Even though it's the most comfortable, it may not be the best way to get your message across. And so it just kind of reminds me to take a moment and consider the message that I'm trying to deliver and the best way that I can do that, whether it be through a digital means or face to face. I find that as I've gotten older, I see less people having face to face conversations, and I am guilty of that behavior as well. Rather than calling my mom, I'll text her because I don't want to be on the phone for a half an hour. So that's what it means to me. That's kind of what it reminds me to do in my own life. Till next time.